Brand Nerds. Ooh. This show is going to be a little different, Brand Nerds. Welcome back to another podcast of Brands, Beats, and Bytes. There are some subjects, Brand Nerds, that are near and dear to my heart. There are some people, Brand Nerds, that are near and dear to my heart. In this case, we have both. We have a human, a very dear friend of mine, and also a subject that quite literally, LT, he is the only individual on the planet qualified to discuss this particular subject in the way he is going to discuss it. So, brand nerds, hold on to your seats. LT, will you let the folks know who we have the auspicious occasion to have in the building with us on this glorious Friday?
Oh, man. So, yes, D, this is going to be really fun one for us. We have Michael Guth in the building today. Welcome, Guth.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, Guth, we're so happy you are joining us. And let us give our brand nerds a Twitter version of who you are. So, Michael Guth is a truly incredibly accomplished business person and marketer. He matriculated at Harvard, where he earns both an undergrad degree in history. Then he goes to work for the New York Mets as a marketing manager before going back to Cambridge, where he earns an MBA in marketing. He then comes down to Coca Cola HQ, working in a variety of roles, including with DC on Sprite, which is a big reason why we have him on today. And oh, by the way, after Coca Cola, he happens to work his way up the marketing ladder and the business ladder, including running sales and marketing at a place you may know called Madison Square Garden, COO of Opry Entertainment, and now in his current position as CMO of Spectrum Reach. So, D, kick us off further here, man.
All right, brand nerds. I'm going to read a couple of things to you all, and you're going to be able to guess it. So I'll read the phrase, and then brand nerds, you all think about the brand. Just do it. We know that's Nike. Think different. Apple. I'm loving it. McDonald's. Melts in your mouth, not in your hands, not in your hands. M&M. A diamond is forever. De Beers. We know these strap lines, taglines, because they are enduring. In fact, but for Think Different, Nike's Just Do It hasn't changed. McDonald's, I'm loving it, decades. M&M's melts in your mouth, not in your hands, more than 50 years. De Beers, a diamond is forever, forever. Okay, this is how long these strap lines have been around, because they are phenomenal. On April 18th of 2024, after a 24-year hiatus, another strap line returned. And that was Obey Your Thirst Sprite. Launched in 1994 from the creative mind of a gentleman by the name of Lee Garfinkel of Low Lentos at the time. So that was 1994. He and his team birthed the brand team, the Sprite brand team, with that line. When the Sprite brand really started to come to life at a major, major level, not only domestically, but globally, Larry, it did so not only because of the strategy, and we had one hell of a strategy, not only because of the way we delved into youth culture, and we were really deep into youth culture, and hip hop was a big part of that, but because the Sprite brand did a partnership with the NBA at a time, Larry, when the NBA was not all that interested in doing a partnership with a baby brand called Sprite talking about youth. The idea of that came from of an NBA Sprite partnership, came from the mind of one man who is in my top 3 of the most intelligent people I have ever met in my life, one Michael Guth. He is my brother. Guth, please tell us what the hell was in your head when you came up with this, and what do you think about the tagline coming back?
So you realize there's anything that I say from this point on is only going to be downhill from that introduction.
That's what I was thinking. He set you up really.
There's nowhere to go.
For you.
There's nowhere to go but down. How great was it to get the text back and forth when that announcement came out about Obey Your Thirst,
wow.
and reconnecting with so many different people, and even talking to people I work with now that are like, oh, I remember that, and can replay the Grand Hill spot almost to a T.
Yes, yes.
Look, I'd say two things. One of which is you said something before. By the way, Daryl, I'm not going to answer the questions the way that you ask them, as nothing's changed.
I know.
I'm going to answer whatever question I want to answer. So
nothing's changed, Brand Nerds. Nothing's
exactly.
Changed.
So look, I will say this, and it was before I got onto the brand, but the brand positioning, the strategy behind Sprite is the best positioning of anything that I've ever been part of. And because it wasn't just about obeying your thirst and trusting your instincts the way the States were. If you remember, originally it was image is nothing, thirst is everything, obey your thirst.
Correct.
And why that was so interesting was because in countries that were not as developed from a marketing standpoint, it was only obey your thirst. And it was just the liquid, and it was the clean, clear, refreshing, and that was it. Yep. And then in other markets, it was thirst is everything, obey your thirst, because in the mindset was, we're going to put you in as hot, right? It was like you're in ski clothes in the desert in a car, and it's all about quenching that thirst. And it was only in other markets where you had images, nothing, thirst is everything, obey your thirst, and yet it all worked. It all made sense across the entire globe, and it was the first time, and really the last time that I've ever been part of something that had all those different connections. And so I'd say, so that was so cool. So the NBA, so there's the
thank you for getting to my question.
We're going to make you talk about the NBA.
So there's the strategic answer and the pragmatic answer. The pragmatic one was, I love sports. You know, I had worked for the New York Mets for 3 years, and I sold sponsorships, and I understood the value of that association, the value of connecting to some other experience to help further extend that brand's reach. But beyond that, properties like baseball at that time, NBA was just starting. There were opportunities to sort of be a tangible representation of your brand that somebody could tap into. And so what I remember back in the day is that we had this new positioning. It did great. I mean, it re-energized the brand. It probably did about 7% growth, which was nice.
9%.
Something like 7. And so, or 9. So that's the funny thing. The funny thing, Larry, you know this well, is for all of his whole creative thing, the most quant person I ever worked with at Coca Cola. He knew numbers backwards and forwards more than anybody else. Period. Like scary, like savant with his stuff. Anyways, so the question was, how do we get it moving forward? Consumers liked it, but our bottling system didn't like it. And what's sort of interesting about Coca-Cola, as everybody knows, but we're doing the brand marketing, but we're really marketing to a bottler who's ultimately put in the hand of a consumer. And so it's not enough to say we're targeting youth. We have an innovative positioning. It's taking root. You got to convince them that it makes sense and it's going to sell more product. And so how do you connect it from a youth position to a bottler who wants to get it into a retail store to get a fourth facing, right? Let alone a third facing on a Coble, or to be on an end aisle display. So we had to come.
And also, I have to add this in, who really cared about having Coke and maybe some Diet Coke on the end aisles. Go on.
That was it. Right. So how do you become the third? And so love sports. We're thinking about music is fine, but music is hard to merchandise in a store. You know, although I tried, I did self-liquidating cassettes back in the day, not nearly as successful on brand Coke, but basketball became a really interesting property. You know why? There were no helmets. There were only 5 players on the court. Every single player was an individual. Unlike my New York Knicks right now, who play a solid team game, Just want to represent the Knicks right now. I feel
You should right now.
This is a tough. Last night was tough. It was there for the taking. Joel Embiid did his thing, but they're individual.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Knicks. Is that the team that's getting ready to lose their series 4-2? That team?
Oh, here we go.
This is going to be recorded, right? And this will be played
Yes.
over and over again.
And it's going to be played next week. So one of you is going to look really good and
Okay.
one's going to look really
I am
bad. But
sorry.
go on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We're just happy to be here. You know, one game at a time. God willing, we hope we're gonna see it. It's
Coach,
fine.
speak Guth. Go ahead.
So look, it represented Sprite. There's the individuality. There was a celebration of that, and beyond that, you could actually do deals with players because there weren't as much going on that you could actually create some opportunities. And so we said, how could we do this? So there was a player part of it, as you recall, but then there was also the backboards and the stand-ups and all the
That's
other
right.
things we did to sort of merchandise brand Sprite in the stores.
Okay, so Larry, I love my brother. He's leaving some portions out.
He's totally, will you please?
Leaving some portions out.
I know
Okay,
he's
so-
leaving portions out because he's
Right.
being Mr. Humble now.
Yeah,
Please
so-
fill in the brand nerds of what he
Okay.
really did to like connect those dots. He just gave you the backdrop, which is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Okay, it was wonderful. Okay, so here, brand
Yeah.
nerds, let me set the stage. Okay, the Sprite brand had not grown for nearly a decade. So first year repositioning, and to Michael's point, brilliant repositioning strategy, led by Steve Horn. Give Steve
Yep.
Horn
Absolutely.
his due.
Yes.
Give Steve Horn his due. He's the mastermind, and
Yes.
so a brand that had turned around, like a swing at that point, it was probably like a 13-point swing because it was down 2-3% before. Now it's up 9. So what happens is if a kid, because at that point Guth was a kid, so was I. So a kid is supposed to come on and go, let me just ride this rocket ship. This is great. Not Guth. Okay, not Guth. He could have just said, you know what, hey,
Yep.
more music stuff, great. Hip hop, great. We're rolling. And so he thought, no, we need to get to the bottler piece. But Brand Nerds, there was a problem. The problem when he came up with the idea of the NBA, Michael did, is that NBA was a partner of the Coca Cola brand, Coca Cola Classic. That's Big Daddy. Okay. and to that, and up to that
Yep.
point, the Coca Cola brand had never relinquished a property that they did not want to keep. It did not happen. So Guth, what happened?
Well, I'm not going to say there were some throwdowns in the hallways of Coca Cola. There were, it's a
But there were.
It's a classy organization, but it was really that. I believe that we'll keep names out, but it was a lot of, do you realize who you are, Sprite? You're
Yeah.
Yes.
you're nothing. You
Yes.
are, we do more in growth in a month than you do in a year. So why would you possibly?
Yes.
And the answer was, well, that's exactly the point. You're going to do it with or without. And if you allow the opportunity for us to sort of amplify against this positioning, we're going to see much greater opportunity. But in full disclosure, that got nowhere. We just kept talking and we just kept complaining until it finally moved up the ladder. And it was Steve who was the one, and Steve Koonin. So we got Steve Horn and Steve Koonin. As much as we like to take, Steve asked the question, and I was not in the room. So you may have been in the room. It's now the stuff of legend, which
It is. Yes.
So
Yes.
the question was at that time, which brand is bigger,
Yep.
Coca-Cola or the NBA? And the answer was
Yes.
immediate. It's Coca-Cola. There's no question.
Game, set, match.
And then the second question was, what's bigger, the NBA or Sprite?
Yep.
And the answer was equally NBA.
Yep.
And the third question was, why do you do sponsorships? Do you do it to grow your brand or you do it to grow their brand?
A wrap.
That was it.
That was
Yep.
it. Yep. Yep.
And then it was good luck. All right, let's see what you do with it and see what you're right. But that's really what ended up happening. I think it's an important reminder when people do sponsorships is what's the point? Who's growing
Yes.
who? Where's the value that you get from it? And that sort of changed the trajectory. And then we started to have some fun. Then we had to figure out, I'll tee this up, who are we going to associate with? And then how are we going to activate in the local markets to get people excited?
Yes,
Okay.
but before you tee that up, didn't you all, and again, I'm down the hall, brand nerds, watching all this go on. Didn't you also say, hey, for brand Coca Cola, they're going to have you slotted in for like 1 month, right? You're going to be 1 month in the year of 12 months, and that's going to be wonderful for that 1 month. Whereas for Sprite, you guys are going to really be banging the drum for the NBA the whole year. Wasn't that part of your argument too?
Well, I had forgotten that part. Part one was convincing Coca Cola.
That's right.
Part two is convincing the NBA.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because the NBA, very smart group of people, asked the same three questions. Right? So their calculus was it made much more sense to work with Coca Cola, and we had to say exactly as you said, Larry. This is not All-Star Weekend, or this is not
right
playoff. This is a 12-month commitment with the brand that so identifies with what your brand is, that we can bring it to life in different ways and really make it part of sort of mainstream in a way that hadn't been done before.
Yep.
But it was a push. I don't, John, you know better than me, but it was not easy. It was not an easy sell.
They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. David Stern didn't want to do it. Rest in power. And this is where that's primarily Coonan was the interface. Steve Coonan was the interface with them, and eventually convinced them. Also in that room where this discussion was taking place that you talked about, Guth, John Conrad. We got to give a little.
Absolutely.
John Conrad is
Mm-hmm.
well. So for the brand nerds. Think about this. This is the point that I admire about Michael. And I would encourage the brand nerds who are early in their careers and looking to move up. You gotta determine where you're going to place your bets. And that means placing your bets on your career. If that hadn't worked, I'm not sure that Guth is sitting in that seat right now. Okay, because he ruffled feathers. Like together we ruffled some feathers.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't worked, I don't know that anybody gives us a shot to do that again, at least not at the Coca-Cola company. So, but as you know, Larry, neither Michael or I have any issues with ruffling feathers. We have no issues with ruffling feathers. So,
well, nor did we have any doubt.
We didn't.
That's right.
That could have been naive. But this was so perfect and so obvious to the both of us that our only issue was the ability to convince everybody internally. Once we got that, I don't think we ever doubted it for a moment. Because we had the data. The other part of it, it's not just because we had the swagger. We had the data to know that, look, in a brand environment, when you have consumers loving you at a higher rate than they are buying because they can't get access to it, that's as good as it gets, right? They think about you aspirationally higher than the way you're delivering in the market. And so we just had to rise to that demand. So we knew we knew what would happen if we increased one extra facing in a Cobalt. We knew what would happen because we saw what the velocity. Wow, velocity. I got chills there for a second. Back in the day. But we knew. So this wasn't just about strategic alignment and positioning. We had the facts that said if this happens and we get that take in the market, this is going to fly off the shelf.
Data about this, to Guth's point, LT. Repositioning happens, just a change in the strategy, no incremental money, 9% increase. Second year, now we're starting to get into some of the NBA stuff, early stages, 17% growth. Third year, now the NBA is starting to see 25% growth. So it's like boom, 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 to Guth's point. All right, so I want to make another point, Guth, and then I want to go to this story about Grant Hill and how he came to be. But let me start this. All right, so LT, something else that Guth came up with, he talks about the backboards as sort of a thing. Not,
Oh, yeah.
it's commonplace now. Like, oh, we're gonna redo this chord in
Right.
the backboards. All right. So Guth came up with this idea of the backboards, and then he and the team under his leadership did a local market toolkit.
Yep.
When I tell you, LT, this box, it looked like a Sprite box. It had a handle on it.
Yep. I
and
remember them.
inside of it had all the stuff. That toolkit became the template for all of the toolkits. All of the other brands did because of that toolkit. So, Guth,
Yeah. Well, look.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
also, but this is important, Michael, and I want to make this point. And you guys were so focused on who your consumer was. So that was going to take the brand not only from being something that they interface with in obeying your thirst, but was part of their lives, right? Like to get basketball hoops maybe that they weren't as accessible as before. So Sprite is really experientially part of their life in a full circle kind of way. That was the brilliance of that.
well, yes, for sure. But what the interesting thing about the backboards was the consumer there was the bottler and the store owner.
Yep.
Right.
Really.
Yep.
Because what we couldn't figure out originally is how do we still get those facings?
Yep.
And so shockingly, if you offer back in the day, if you say you're going to do a promotion in a store where you're going to give a backboard that's branded Sprite branding, and you're going to decorate a whole display with that. All you need to do is put a couple 12 packs of Sprite on that Coke Diet Coke thing. And guess what? You can give that backboard away. You can keep that backboard. You can do whatever you want overnight. Overnight guarantee installation. In terms of the toolkit, we said we would do these, and this was redoing outdoor courts that needed to be refurbished. And putting,
and that's what I was referring to.
And putting those backboards and branding in. What we did then is we said to the bottlers, we have limited ability to do this. So we're not asking you to do it. We're inviting you to put in an entry, right? To ask for permission. And all of a sudden now we create demand. So now this was something that if we had said, we want to do courts in every single market, they would have said, we're too busy. We're saying, we're only going to do 5. We're only going to do 7. Now, all of a sudden you create a demand. And so I think there are 2 parts to it. One of which is we were consistent with the brand all the way through. So it wasn't just a Sprite backboard, like that graphics and those logos, right? If you remember, the graphics were incredible, right? It wasn't just a backboard. It was consistent with the brand. In terms of doing grassroots activation, it wasn't just about grassroots. It was consistent with the brand, just like you were saying, and sort of empowering the consumer of a brand. But we were doing it in a way that our bottler or store owner could buy.
Right.
That was sort of the beauty of it, because we understood both consumers, and we tied it together in a way that was consistent from a brand standpoint.
Exactly. It was wonderful. All right, D, let's do the Grand Hill. I know you're chomping at this one.
I'm going to go to Grand Hill. One other quick thing before you go to Grand Hill. Again, the data. So as much as Guth alluded to this, people think about the Sprite brand as all of the creative stuff, and it was highly creative. The strategy and the data is what led the way for us. And so the reason why Guth, LT, you know this, the brand nerds don't know this, was so focused on closing that delta of what we called in the industry at that point, virtual demand, virtual consumption, like up here in demand, but the availability here, is because our brand had one of the lowest percentages of contribution of people that drank a soft drink 3 times or more a day. That's your heavy users. We were at 9%, whereas Mountain Dew and Diet Coke at the highest at 32, 33%, and Coke was in the high 20s. So we were very low.
Right.
So Guth was not only looking to close the delta in the demand overall, but to also accelerate frequency of consumption, which could be done by having it more available, particularly in cold locations. Okay, I'm boring the brand nerds now. Okay, let's go to this. Okay, so
that's what's so great about, go ahead. This is the best.
Okay, this was hilarious. Okay,
This is.
so okay, now, Mr. Boy Genius over here. Okay, so they bring the campaign back, Obey Your Thirst, and they bring it back using Anthony Edwards almost like word for word, frame for frame. What was Grant Hill and Grant Hill was in the original spot in '96, actually, not in '94, but in '96. And then also the Olympic year, we might even get into like whole dream team and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, bringing him back, Grant Hill appears, but there was some debate as to whether Grant Hill should be in the original Obey Your Thirst ad.
That's not entirely true, Darryl. There was no debate. You know,
okay.
come
on, Guth.
We both talk about data, and very much grounded in this stuff. And so Darryl, like, people may not know this, but Darryl every year would cut out USA Today drafts, right? And because a collection of all the players. So Darryl knew the players inside and out. Darryl knew everything there was. I understood it, sports in general, and not as well as Darryl, but we all knew, like, we knew.
Yeah, we
knew who the fans were. We knew who the most popular players, and we did all the research. And we're like, we got to make a bet. We got to get it right because we're only going to get one player. We got to get the right one. We research. We go back and forth. We vet it. We go into Steve Horn's office. Was it Steve or John? I can't remember. I think it was Steve.
Probably Steve. It was Steve.
Right. And it's like, you know what? We figured it out. We got the player. We've been working through it. We crunched the numbers without any question. 100% Chris Webber.
Okay, Larry, with the same confidence and moxie that we had exhibited on everything else up to that point. Same thing.
Chris Webber. That was the one. Unbelievable. And we're like, all right, and then for whatever, we couldn't get Chris Webber done. I was like, you know what? Forget Chris Webber. That was a mistake. Crunch the numbers again without question.
Without question.
Person that most personifies Sprite that's going to take us to the level, Penny Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway. Without question now. Without question, Larry. Before Q scores, we were our own Q score.
Struck out again. So we're like, I don't know, Grant Hill?
And Brand Nerds, one of the great things about this is we couldn't say this at the time. Now you're hearing, now.
Oh, don't worry. We were humbled. So at the end, we're like, we still think we're not. Like, we were sure about Chris Webber. We were pretty positive about Penny. Grant, we're like, I think would be pretty good. We were not nearly the swagger that looking back.
Right.
Because he blew, there's nobody who thought he was going to be the pro before he got the injuries that he was. But no one thought he would catch fire across the country from a popularity standpoint that he did. And the fact that he was so just unique in every aspect became the perfect person in an unexpected way for Sprite. And so that one, we thought about the other side. We got very fortunate with Grant. And he was also a good actor, which was the other thing that was.
Yeah. Well, Brand Nerds, another thing here. This is point in time. You guys got, what you're really saying is you're really smart, but you got lucky. Right.
Oh,
and there were a lot of things that happened. We don't need to relitigate Chris Webber and Penny Hardaway, what was going on at that time also, and with injuries and some other things that happened off the court with Chris Webber.
And family members. Remember that?
Yes, right. So Grant, you guys got that Detroit Pistons Grant Hill, who was the man. Right. Yeah. And, and this comes from a North Carolina guy. Like Grant Hill was just, he was awesome in every way. And that was your first sort of like stake in the ground pillar to then work off of that, which was really perfect. And let's be honest too, with his wife being in the music business, like the whole thing really worked.
He wasn't married then.
Oh, but they were together, weren't they?
But you know what? That gives us even more. It fell into place. I mean, I think what was interesting was the Grant Hill commercial, which was in its simplicity. And again, I do like the real thing. I like the original. I appreciate it. And I think it's actually interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it. about why they brought it back just as an outsider in terms of moment of time. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of
Yep.
similarities to it, but Grant was great. And that whole Grant Hill drinks Sprite and a question mark. And then it was Grant Hill drinks Sprite and then Grant Hill dunks. And then the back and forth was amazing. It took off and really was great for the brand. But like you said, a North Carolina fan, like there's no Knicks, no New York bodega or supermarkets putting Grant Hill stand-ups, right? It's a Knicks market.
Right.
And so what we ended up doing after that is recognizing that part of the individuality of basketball is also the passion each market has for their players. And so we ended up coming up with a amount of money that we could parcel out, and it was not the stars of the team.
Right.
It was the up and comers. It was the young players that we had identified that could represent our brand. And I wish I could remember and go back and list the players that we had, but we had a lot more
roster
hits.
in the business, the best roster.
Yep.
You were the first to do it. And each of those things, so you have that player, you'd have a stand-up. Those stand-ups could go to a local store owner, could be given away for promotions. It would create another reason to build something around it. We created interesting barrel coolers. Everything was sort of put together, but those players became an important thing. But it started with our third choice.
All right, so brand nerds, if you're fortunate throughout your careers, you will find yourself on a project that might be recognized as one of the best in your department. If you're even more lucky, it'll be considered one of the best in your company. If you're even more fortunate, it might be considered one of the best in your industry. But on very rare occasions will you work on something that will transcend all of that and set a blueprint for how all companies start to do marketing and communications and data analysis and strategy. So Sprite was one of those projects for Michael and I. Still more rare is to look back at it and say, if they removed this person, would it have happened the same way? And I'm telling you all, if you would have removed Michael Guth, and I'm surely glad that did not happen, you do not have the Sprite today that we all know that we all know and love. You don't have that.
You know, I have a very positive sense of self.
Yes, I do.
So you know that. The reality of it is, and this is sincere, it was the two of us. Like we were kindred spirits that came from very different perspectives. Yeah. And the combination and the refusal to back down is what made it work. It was the combination. It was your inherent sort of instinctive understanding of where the world of music was going. It was the intersection that we had in sports. It was the combination of the data that we were both sort of fascinated about.
Yeah.
And then the sports background from an activation that I had. It was that combination.
Yeah.
That really, like, to be honest, like I think that was what the beauty of it was, is because we both were like-minded from a strategy, but at different perspectives that we folded together in a way that became really something magical and something that we look back now. Like I remember these things. I can't remember last week, and I can remember all those different details because it was so. And this is not 2020 hindsight. Like this, it happened exactly the way that we thought it was going to happen.
It did.
Not the Grant Hill part, but all the other stuff was exactly how we imagined it because we kept challenging each other to think that way.
D, what do you think about that?
First, thank you, Michael. I concur. I don't know that I have ever had a more symbiotic relationship with someone that I've worked with, where it was literally a mind meld.
Yeah.
Particularly with someone who I thought to be so different than myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like we were like that version of marketing's Odd Couple. We were quite the odd couple, but they knew. I think no matter what we were doing together, some folks would say, "Okay, I might be able to try to battle this one dude." by himself or this other dude by himself. But these two knuckleheads together?
Mhm.
No, I'm out.
So Larry, first time, can I take a tangent? I'm going to take it.
Please,
I just want to
please.
I want to ask first,
Go.
just to,
Go.
so the first memories I have of Daryl
Yeah.
is a guy who said nothing. I won't do his mannerisms, but we all know, you know.
He's removing his glasses, Brand
Yeah.
Nerds, for you to know.
So-
That's
so-
definitely one of them.
So he's in his office, piles of paper, terrible posture, just crunching numbers. Like maybe, like if you remember, is it Office Space, the guy with the stapler? Like that,
Yeah.
that was Daryl. Like, he was just whispering numbers, and because here's why. Because he was like, I'll be damned if there's anybody here who's going to know more about this business than me.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay. And so his superpower was not his finger on the pulse of culture. It was, he knew damn more than anybody else about our business. And so he was crunching away. So I go, I introduce, I sort of, we're talking, and he's like, Guth, let me just tell you one thing. You got to make sure you don't get caught up in the numbers, and you get caught up in your computer office. And the next thing you know, you've missed a meal, you've missed lunch. It's now dinner. You're going to get tired. Like, you got to make time for yourself. Right? He's trying to coach me. And I was like, Daryl, the one thing you need to know about me. What is it, Daryl?
I eat. I eat.
That was the first, and that was it. And then we're off to the races. That was it. I eat. I eat. You got Spring Baby, you got DC, and I eat.
Oh my goodness.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, my view of watching you all, like I would see you all go into meetings, and of course, you know, seeing you guys operate and thinking the world of both of you individually, but then collectively, I just remember thinking, oh boy, this is a formidable duo. And, you know, seeing you guys work that NBA thing, I remember having the lunch conversations with you all about as this was in process. And so Brand Nerds, what's incredible is that these two gentlemen, the things that they both have are horsepower intelligence, both of them, work ethic in a huge way, right? And also understanding how to walk into rooms and see what's happening in a room, meaning EQ, and when they should exert themselves, when they should lay back, right? And that's what Guth, that's what you were relating to, because Dion, you know, he will lay back at first to read the room. That's where you were going. And so
he was, he
right?
thought he was so smart in terms of his and then you knew he was waiting to drop the hammer, and you just knew it. So I'd watch it, and sometimes you knew, or you saw it, like you just start laughing because like, here it comes, 3, 2, 1, because like yeah, you know, or I don't know, maybe, bam, and that was it. Game over. I have, as you can tell, I have far less restraint, which is why we worked really well, because it would be, and it depends, and you probably know this, like the over-under, if he does more than 4 that means he disagrees. If it's like then you're in good shape. Then you're in good shape.
Oh, Goof.
Oh, he's so right. You know that.
Yeah, he is. He knows me better than most. He knows me better than most.
The other one is, you know, when a baby, when a child is hurt, and the amount of time it takes for that first wail is like when you know it's serious or not, like when it's like a 5. Same with Daryl, when it's like, then you knew the longer that was, it was going to be trouble as he was doing his talk. So you time it. But no, those were great stuff. And what's so fun is that I hadn't thought about half of this stuff for a while, although I probably use the stuff I do every single day.
Yeah.
But I thought, like, I don't know what you guys thought. I think reintroducing Obey Your Thirst, the concept behind it, given where the world is right now, I think is really, really smart.
Yeah.
So do I.
It's as much the trust your instincts as much
is.
Obey Your Thirst. And I think they need to really find that balance. But What'd I do, Larry?
I was going to ask you because you went right to it. I was going to ask you all that. I totally agree with what you said, but I don't know, Brand Nerds. Again, if you go on YouTube and check out the spot, I'd love go check out the latest spot with Anthony Edwards. It's a wonderful spot, but then go back to the Grant Hill spot. And by the way, I did this. My son Jake was in, and as DC affectionately refers to him as his nephew, and he's a real basketball kid. And I showed Jake the original spot, and then showed him the Anthony Edwards spot. And there's one thing missing in the new spot that I noticed, and you just said it, Guth. There's no trust your instincts.
Yep.
What do you guys think about that?
No, that's yeah, good, yeah.
No, you go, Guth.
No, I think that's it. I think that beyond just the Green Hill spot was a beautiful spot from a pacing standpoint.
Yes.
It was the whole, if you go back to the beginning about the positioning in the United States was really image is nothing, thirst is everything, obey your thirst, which is about trusting your instincts.
Yep.
It wasn't about obeying your thirst. Obeying your thirst was the payoff of what happens when you trust your instincts.
Right. Correct.
Right.
And so with Grant Hill, as they see this and see someone who's practicing and you know, outdoor court, rough, working hard, paying dues, you know, and then and I haven't seen the spot back. I mean, but I'm now right. He crushes the can and sinks one into the trash can, right? And
Right.
This thing, I can do this, and then doesn't. And it is a lap that you've got to trust your own instincts. You can't rely on others, right? You can't do. And so I think it was a little bit. I wanted them to enjoy that in the new spot. I think it's the right positioning. I really think it's the right time for that, trusting your instincts, and at the fundamental basis, what Sprite, because of the product, is cool, crisp, and refreshing, and has the right to sort of be in that position. I think they have a real opportunity. I think it's really smart, and I'm excited to sort of see where it evolves. It's also great as a great reminder to the past too. So I love that as well.
Right.
All right. As Kornheiser would say, we're going to get you out of here on this. Tony Kornheiser from Pardon the Interruption.
Really? Larry, does he have to qualify? Does he have to qualify all the time in that? Thank you, Darryl. I appreciate that. I know Kornheiser is. Thank you.
It's for the Brand Nerds, dude. It's for the Brand Nerds.
All right, fine. So, I apologize, Brandon. I apologize.
Okay,
no, you know, I'm glad someone else is giving you shit other than me. Go ahead.
He's been giving me shit for 30 years. Okay. All right. So, all right, Guth. So, 2 questions for you as we get you out of here.
Uh-oh.
One, looking back to then and thinking about your career up to now, if you were giving advice to brand nerds in their mid-20s in their career seeking to grow, question 1 is, what advice would you give to them? And then question 2, sorry to stack these questions. Question 2 is, given your knowledge throughout your career and your indispensable role on Sprite and Love of Sprite, what advice would you give to the brand team today?
Oh boy, the first one. Wow. You know, look, a couple of them. One of which I tell everybody at that age is to be relentlessly curious. Always ask why.
Love that.
Always sort of look to sort of see what's underneath and why things happen and why how could they happen in different ways. I think we used to joke at Coca Cola, no one got fired, no one got promoted by doing the exact same thing as the person before. And that wasn't always the best result. It forced you to say, how can I make things better? How can I create value? So being curious is about how you create values, particularly in your 20s. You're not supposed to be the expert in everything, but where can you create value in a thing? The other thing I tell everybody is understand what you're passionate about. What is your thing? It wasn't, for me, it wasn't about working at Coca Cola. I've always been fascinated by the intersection of consumers with the things that they're passionate about and how I can sort of take complicated things and tell simple stories. So that started with the New York Mets. And what I found great about Coca Cola was at that time, there was not a water. There was not liquids that would make you better other than having some sugar and some caffeine and other pieces. And so what was the associated equity that would make me want to hold a can in my hand and say, this is me. And so it was connected to sports and music and entertainment. And that was what I was passionate about. And through my career, it was understanding that intersection. And so that really helped me, even when I was like a caterer in college. I think understanding what drives you so that you can find opportunities to do things that you're passionate about will make you as successful as you can possibly be. That, and really think about how can I create value. Do not wait for someone to say, here's how it can be. Look at it, be curious, ask questions, and find your path. So that's what I say, number one. As always, to the Sprite brand team, I love the positioning right now. I think it is really, really smart. But I think, and I'm curious to see, I think they need to look at the entire positioning. Images, nothing, thirst is everything, obey your thirst was the magic. It wasn't obey your thirst. And so be mindful, take your time with it. Because, and I'm curious, I haven't seen what your obey your thirst days are going to be. I've been to the website. I'm sort of curious to sort of see what that means, what an obey your thirst day represents. But the idea of understanding that, and then also understanding how that can tie back to your customers, not the consumer, but those customers in terms of what you can do to sort of drive the product off the shelf. And so how do you sort of connect those dots? And so my guess is the Obey Your Thursdays will help do that. But I think it's smart. I think the time is really is right for it. And I think they can do some really good things. I think Anthony Edwards is the right player. I think he's fantastic. And I think he's showing that in these playoffs. But I think beyond that, off the court as well, I think he's terrific. So I wish him the best of luck, and just take the whole thing. Don't take one bite. Take the whole thing.
I don't know that there's much more to say with that close, Larry. I will add this. The director on the Sprite brand is Brian Rogers. So I just want to shout out Brian Rogers. The head of creative on the Sprite brand today is AP Cheney. So Brian, AP, rest of the team, congratulations.
Absolutely.
We wish you the best. And then Guth, thank you. You intellectually challenged me. You intellectually stimulated me. And above all of that, you made it fun. There was not a day that I came into that building that I did not look forward to laughing with you and debating with you. And it was just a blast, man. Just a blast.
Brand Nerds, they had fun. I watched it, man. I'd sometimes walk by and they'd be laughing. I'm like, what's going on here? What am I missing?
That's in a nutshell, Larry. If you find your passion and you get to do it every single day, and forget the never, you never work a day in your life, but you know what? For those years, pretty close. Pretty close.
Damn close.
And also, Guth, is finding people like yourself, finding people that you just, connect with, and that are team people that don't care about who's getting the credit. That's just doing what's right for the business, man. We talk about that a lot. And, you and Dee always personified that in my mind.
Appreciate it. Hey, thank you. Thank you for the trip down memory lane.
Guth, you're the best, brother.
Back at you. Thanks, Larry.
All right. And this is my close. Thanks for listening to Brands, Beats, and Bytes. The executive producers are Jeff Shirley, Daryl D.C. Cobbin, Larry Taman, Haley Cobbin, Jake Tate, and Tom Bureau. That is he. And if you do like this podcast, please subscribe and share. And for those on Apple Podcasts who are so inclined, we love those excellent reviews. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we look forward to next time where we will have more insightful and enlightening talk about marketing.